You're listening to The Empowered Advocate, a podcast from Greensboro Pregnancy Care Center. Hey guys, we're back and we're actually going to be doing part 2 of our episode about adoption because Chad and Holly and I were just talking and realized there's a ton of information here and they have a ton of experience that we want to be able to share with you guys. So we're just going to jump right back into it. So Chad, I'll just ask you a little bit. A few minutes ago we were talking about how you're in the process of a second adoption, and this one is domestic. So your first one was international, and your son came from Ethiopia. So maybe talk about the differences between the process of international versus domestic and what that's been like for y'all.
Yeah, the international was a little bit longer. There was a little bit more things we had to do, paperwork we had to do. So just as far as time frame, international was a little bit longer.
I think just with the paperwork, with international, you have to get a lot more like state certification, certified copies of things. Like everything has to be more like notarized, certified, that type of thing. With domestic, I think maybe we had to get a couple of sheets, maybe with that. We had to, international, we had to go to Charlotte to get fingerprinting. Domestic, we had to go to our local police station. So things like that you have to weigh out. When you say more? Yeah.
And I think you had mentioned that initially, so this process started a long time ago, right? Let's share about that a little bit.
So our second adoption actually started 8 years ago. We had, before our middle son was born, we had decided we wanted to adopt from Ethiopia again. So we started the process. We went through all the paperwork, the home study, sent our dossier off to Ethiopia, sent a bunch of money to Ethiopia and waited. And that time, even that short period of time, like the wait times had already gone up and was increasing in Ethiopia. But I bet we were on the list like 3 years, and we were okay with that, knowing this is gonna be okay. And then all of a sudden, Ethiopia closed its doors on adoption. So I was probably more devastated than Chad, just being the mom. Like I felt like I had a miscarriage, like just having, and I felt more of that miscarriage when we started doing paperwork again for this domestic adoption. I was like, I just went through all of this process and nothing happened. But we have to keep reminding ourselves, like, God is so faithful to his promises, and this is what he's called us to do. So it'll happen. It just might not be in our timing or what we had thought. So
now you're in the domestic process and you're waiting.
Yes.
So you have 3 boys now. What's that been like as far, like how involved have they been in the process of, welcoming a new brother or sister into your family? What's that been like?
Yeah, we've definitely talked a lot with them all about it. I think they're all really excited. Camden, the youngest, probably, I don't know how much he's aware.
He'll ask daily, is the baby coming today? Like he has no idea, but yeah.
But they're all really excited, and our oldest who is adopted, I think he's especially excited about it.
So. For this one we had to do a photo book of us, so they were excited about sort of picking out pictures that the potential birth mom might look at them. So I think just involving them, we pray for the birth mom, we pray for the new adopted child, and hearing their prayers are really sweet. Just what the Lord puts on their heart at different times. But I think it's really cool. We didn't tell them what prayers to pray, but they'll pray that it happens fast. They pray for a smooth transition, that the little baby's not scared. They pray for the birth mom to have courage and hope. And it's not like we scripted that out, but like just talking about different plans, or like, trying to think through, how do we, if we go to the beach, we might have a new little, just trying to get their excitement. We don't want to excited. At the same time, you don't want to never talk and all of a sudden be like, surprise.
What? Yeah. That's a neat gift too. It sounds like you guys have created a culture of life and of adoption and just that expectancy. And I'm sure that, kids pick up on that kind of stuff so easily on the things that you guys care about. They're going to adopt it and care about it too. So
I think just one more thing with Keenan and I, our oldest, I think he's super excited. His prayers, or he'll tell me that, he's like, I'm excited to have like somebody that maybe will look like me. I'm excited that somebody will understand, like to have that kind of, just somebody in her family that like, he can stick with, that kind of thing. And I even told him, I was like, you're going to be a big brother. You're going to have to sort of like walk them through when they're feeling like this loss or grief, you know, you're going to have to help him. So I think it's almost like that excites him that he's going to be able to do that with somebody.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. So I guess, have you guys talked to anyone who has had the experience of adopting a new child into a family where there's already kids there? Like, what are some of your strategies for having a transitioning? Because, you know, the first time you adopted, it was your first child. So this time coming in, y'all are gonna have a big family. So any ideas about what that might look like? Or I guess for anyone who's listening, who's maybe wondering, I have a couple kids, should we adopt? Like, is that a good idea to bring a new child into the family? What do you guys think?
Sure. I think you speak better to this because the birth order. Like,
okay, yeah. I think we've done. Yes, I think it's fine to bring. I would say yes, 100%. If you feel like you want to bring children into the home, regardless of what your family makeup is, sure. A thing for us, and I think we've consulted with different, or sought counsel from different people, and they like to keep in birth order. So instead of our oldest is 963, hopefully, Lord willing, we put on our only requirement was from like 0 to 2.5 or something. So just that. But I mean, just because of the potential, I think there's probably a little bit more things you have to think through upsetting the birth order kind of thing. If you've already, especially how long, I mean, our kids have been like this for a few years, and if we adopted like an 8-year-old or an 11-year-old, that's sort of like it just changed. Not saying it's not doable by no means, but I think presents just, you're going to think through a lot more challenges for everybody we're going to have challenges in just an adjustment phase too, but I think you'd have even more, I think, with like upsetting the birth order.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing is that there are things to think through. It's not just like, let's sign up for the adoption and see what happens, you know, more things to consider. And that's okay to think through, you know, your options. I kind of get the impression from some friends that they feel a little guilty if they exclude any age group on who they want to adopt, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't think that's bad. I think it's like our agency, or one of them even said, you know, look at the dynamics of your family. Like, since you have to look at, okay, what has God blessed you with now? What's going to like work the best for you guys?
Be realistic.
Be realistic. So, because even if you were you were getting ready to have a biological child, there's going to be a transition. Like, you know, when you bring that new baby home, there's a transition for everyone. So I feel like there's still a transition. There's a little bit added transition, you know, but
one question I thought of was, what about maybe your extended family? So how has your adoption affected the relationships with your extended family? Has there been support? I guess I'm thinking of someone who's listening who might think, I don't know what my family would think about this if we want to adopt, you know, transracially or something. You know, how could you speak to that maybe?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They've been supportive, but you know, the reality, I think it maybe just adoption in general was a little foreign to them. You know, they hadn't, so that was one. But then also, you know, transracial adoption. So they love him to death. But maybe some of the, trying to think how to put it, some of the things we've had to think through or try to navigate, just trying to help. Maybe that's the way to put it. We've had to, as best we can, help educate our parents as well about some things that are important. Is that a fair way to put it?
Because like we might not discipline him the same exact way that we discipline others. I'm not saying we choose favorites. We don't. Right. There's just different things that are going on maybe for him. And so not everything is black and white. And I don't mean that. Just like we'll have to share that with like my parents and his parents and just be like, okay, if some certain things, if he does X, you know, you might not, that might be a temper tantrum to some kids, you know, but for this, there's probably something else going on that we need to figure out.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe just kind of being open with extended family, providing them with some education about the process so they're not in the dark. I'm curious about this. So what would you say, what is something that maybe irritated you that people would say to you about adoption? Maybe, for example, or I'll ask it this way. What should people not say to couples who have just adopted or just brought a new baby home? What are some things you would just say, just don't say that?
Probably one of the ones that we've touched on too, but it's so glad you got him young because you'll have no issues.
Right.
Yeah, don't say that one. When are you, or like almost, especially in the makeup of our family, like, oh, I'm so glad he, speaking to our adoption, like you had him and then the Lord blessed you with your own. Like they've said that, we've heard that several times in front of our kids, like that, like our bio kids are the ones that we were really wanting.
Right.
And so we've had to tactfully and gracefully like, no, we didn't, there's nothing, we didn't struggle with infertility. We didn't, this wasn't like our prize and we had to get to him or go through him to get to these over here.
Yeah, I don't know for me, but I think it kind of gets at what you're asking. I don't know that, I can't think of anything direct anybody said, but like just being a white dad with a black son, like hair, for example, is really important. And I take him to a black barber shop. So just being confident that I'm his dad, and this is, does that make sense? It's just, not knowing what folks might think, but it's just, I think I've
being
had
okay with probably being like you've had to ask certain questions in the barber shop that probably typical black dads would know about their black sons, and we have to be like, okay, we're just educate us. I'm sorry, like we're learning too. Yeah. And I think you mentioned this earlier too, though, that you saved the child, or like we're the rescuers kind of thing, that kind of mentality probably. Yeah. Is there anything else?
I can't think of anything.
Maybe too, just the thought of like, oh, like once you're home, like and I think I probably alluded to this, like, you got them young, but I've heard this even like some of my friends who they find that the process was so long, they had a lot of prayer support, financial support for the process. Then when that child comes home, it's like, see ya, we're over here. And it's like, well, the journey's like just beginning. Like this is when we need people to crawl in the trenches with us and like do life with us, like figure out like, this is what our day looks like. Oh, your day doesn't look like that? Well, come over here and help.
Well, I bet that could contribute to that isolation you were talking about too.
Absolutely.
Just welcome home. Great. Congratulations. Okay, bye.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. And, I guess in a lot of ways it's similar to when for a biological child, I think about like the things I appreciated the most weren't so much the baby showers, but it was like the meal plan afterwards, and people like coming over and helping and being like, you're not insane. It's okay. This baby will survive. So a lot of that seems
so
to
much power and empathy when somebody finally just gets you and just like, validates your feelings. It's huge. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is having a lot of community around, just having people you can go to that'll help and everything. So is there any last, I guess, parting words or parting pieces of advice you'd like to give listeners just about your experience with adoption, or anyone who may be fearful or just a little hesitant? Anything you'd want to say?
Probably one of the thing that just pops in my mind that we haven't covered yet is just like we've touched on it a little bit, but just if you're thinking or contemplating a transracial adoption, like really get to know that culture, that race. We have listened to different talks, we've read different books, we've gone to different people, you know what I mean? Just to try to figure out like his heritage, his culture, his race is different from mine. I can't speak into that. I've got to be a student and really like learn a lot about that. So I think, just trying to get your hands on as many type of resources, I think it's a great thing. I think that's even a picture of the gospel as well. Like just the blending of the two different races, and you're becoming one family. But just getting to know and learning as much as you can.
Yeah. That brings to mind another question kind of about the transracial adoption. So you mentioned getting to know that culture and educating yourself. So some might think that, you're bringing this person into your family. They're in our family now. So they're going to have our background, just kind of like, kind of not pretending that their background doesn't exist, but almost in a way like, no, this is your new identity. Could you speak to that? Maybe like, is there truth to that? Does it need to be in balance? What do you think?
That's a really great point. Yes, there's some truth to that. There is, because our child has become a cook now. Like he no longer has, he's becoming part of our family. Right. But for us to say that your culture, your heritage, your past, it doesn't matter, like that would be awful of us. You know what I mean? So like his hair is different, like his skin, we need to learn how to take care of that. Ethiopian Christmas is different. It happens in January. We celebrate that. We celebrate different things. We looked into Kwanzaa because that's an African celebration. Let's do that. Did our family do that before? No, but like I wanted him to feel he has a place, and he can also be celebrated in our home as well.
Yeah, that's great. His story matters just as much as, you know.
Yeah, it's like he's having his two identities though are blending, or we're taking on another identity as well. We're a transracial family. We're not just a white family, so we're having to sort of like grab on to his if that makes sense.
Well, I imagine heaven too. It's not just going to be me doing things the way I've always done them. There's a mixing of all these families and histories and stories, and so
which is so beautiful.
Yeah, so it's kind of like adoption is a taste of heaven, you know.
I tell it's funny. I tell my kids that I say adoption, even though it can be hard, it's like you're bringing a little bit of God's kingdom down to this like broken world in a little bit. So if they can see a little bit piece of what heaven is like here.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful place to end right there. Adoption is a piece of the kingdom of God. So, well, guys, thank you so much for this extended little session that we've had. We appreciate it. And for those of you listening, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.